Okay, so next up is the audience reports, and there is a ton of information here. The audience reports specifically deals with information about users on your site, and some of that is activity, and some of the really interesting ones relate to data that Google has access to that gives you sort of benchmark information for sort of untapped information that you otherwise wouldn't know based upon usage of those users across the internet. So really cool stuff. So you can see here, users get based on demographic information, age, their gender, the interests, what technology and browser they're using, what devices they're coming from, even how they're moving through your website. And so the audience reports give you a really deep understanding about who is using your site. And so if we go through here first, just a brief overview, we'll see on here we got sort of the language, the operating system, and we can do, go further into these things. We can add segments if we want to. So right now we're segmenting by all users, but if we wanted to, we could do it by organic traffic or direct traffic to get sort of a better understanding of how that traffic is functioning on our site. We're just going to keep it at all users for now. The active users report is a really great one. It shows you how active users are on your site over certain periods. So we have 1-day active users, 7-day, 14-day, and 28-day. So this gives you an idea of when users come to your site, are they sticking around? And is your website sticky? Are they coming back a second time, a third time, over periods of time? And so this will vary depending upon what industry you're in. A social network like Facebook might be very sticky, whereas maybe a seasonal business like an e-commerce store of some sorts, like golf apparel, might only have two sales cycles where people are coming back to the site, every few months. And so this gives you a great idea of who's coming to the site and how long they're sticking around. Lifetime value is a really cool one that I was playing with. So this gives you an idea of how valuable those users are on your site, and based on certain dimensions. So we have the channel, source, medium. So if you're properly tagging your marketing campaigns, then you'll be able to see how that traffic is coming in, and based upon the revenue that they're bringing in, if you're setting up revenue goals, you'll be able to see how valuable each of those individual channels are, which is really powerful. We can also show this by goal completions and some other metrics, but I think you get the picture there. Cohort analysis is probably one of my favorite ones. So this gives us a breakdown. This is the shelf life of activity on our website. So you can see up here we have day 0, and that's when users come to our site. Okay, so a certain group of users come to our site. What happens at day 1? Only 3% return. Day 2, 1% return. And so this will actually give us an average idea over time, whether or not users are returning to our site. And so you can see down here, this is a cohort analysis. And so if you can read that, May 9th, 2019, we had 2,000 users. So day 0, 100%. Day 1, only 4% came back. And so what this does is this averages this over time. And so by groups of users, spread out over days, and if we want to, we can change this from 7, 14, or 30. We can understand how well retained these users that we're acquiring are. And so depending upon what industry you're in, it could be that you need high stickiness, or maybe you don't need it at all. In the audiences report, this one was really cool. I actually wasn't aware of this. I don't know. The audiences report. So in the audiences report, we're actually not going to cover that one. There wasn't much information there. But in the user explorer, was a really cool one. I actually wasn't familiar with this at the time. So we actually can get by the client ID. So do you remember that tracking code that a unique ID gets assigned to a user when they come to our site? So what we can see here is these are individual users. So they don't have, they have names, but in Google Analytics they don't have names. They have an identifier attached to them. So we can see the sessions that this person had, some other data that they had. But if we click in here, we can actually see even more data about all of that information that they interacted with on our site. And so you'll see here that 1255, they looked at specific pieces of information, Google T dark blue, and so you can actually get a in-depth analysis about what people are doing on your site, whether they're adding things to the cart, and a whole bunch of just helpful information. Demographics gives us a breakdown of the age groups that people are coming. So maybe we find that people see right here, we see 25 to 34. There's that many users, so we know that we're popular with that age group. So maybe we can target them more. But we might be able to find opportunities with certain age groups down here because they're converting at a higher number. So it gives you an idea of how specific age groups are converting in one graph. So as well, you can look at by gender. So male versus female. We can understand if this skews to a specific demographic and either find opportunity in one or continue to market more heavily towards another, depending upon what sort of data is being provided to us. In the interest category, so Google provides this to you based upon the information that they have in their database. So this is percentage of affinity category. So this basically is interest level for the users that are coming to your site. So maybe you had an idea, that you were a travel site, but you only find that 2.2% of the people that come to your site are travel and business travelers, but they want to come, 3.5% are shoppers and value shoppers. So you might be able to get a better understanding of where opportunities lie based upon interest categories so that you can inform your marketing activities. The geography, so we can do this by, you saw in the real-time reports, by location and language. This just gives us a richer set of data by users and new users, being able to sort of see where these individuals are coming from, what their language is, and so this might be able to tell you if you need to create more content in that specific language or potentially translate your website into that language so that you can sort of internationalize your site and take advantage of those hidden opportunities by language or location. The behavior reports allow you to see how users are behaving on your site. So Google will actually classify new versus returning. So if someone has come to your site for the first time versus come back multiple times, you're going to be able to see some data for how long those individuals are there, whether or not maybe you need to improve your marketing related retention activities. So maybe it's that you're getting a lot of new users, but your returning users aren't as significant. And so if you'd like to bump that up in time on site, you could set that as a goal and begin to put in place, maybe sort of an email chain or something to sort of get users back onto your site. And so these things end up giving you all sorts of different pieces of data related to that. Technology, so you can actually see what browsers users are coming from. And so here, Chrome is a very popular browser, obviously. I use Chrome, it's great, but you might find that, through testing and development purposes, I've never even heard of Edge or UC browser. And so, some of these, pieces of data will inform, how to improve your developer experience if you're doing software development. If you're still doing just your basic website, and it could be that you're trying to custom tailor marketing activities to focus specifically on certain browsers. And so this will give you a breakdown of whether or not maybe something's breaking, or if there's a different experience on one versus the other. And so it'll give you some good core pieces of information. Secondly, for technology related reports is the mobile. So this will actually give you a breakdown of who's coming from what type of mobile devices. And so, Apple iPhone, very popular. iPad, next popular. And so, you're getting a lot of conversions and revenue from those phones. And so you'd want to target these individuals because that's where a lot of your revenue might be coming from versus some of these other phones where there isn't any associated revenue data. So it tells you that iPhone and Apple product users are maybe you're more internet e-commerce savvy, and so you can begin to focus your efforts towards them versus wasting marketing dollars on things on devices that aren't necessarily converting. Cross-device we're not going to cover. Benchmarking is an interesting one. I wasn't really aware of this at the time, but it seems that Google allows you to come in and select certain dimensions so that you can benchmark your company against other companies' data on the internet. So basically what the benchmarking tool allows you to do is see your data against benchmarked data across the internet for similar websites. And so you can see if you're underperforming or maybe you're overperforming against certain metrics and dimensions. And so it's a really interesting tool to be able to compare yourself against the internet. So it'll give you some relative perspective about whether or not you need to improve or target that more because you're doing it and have sort of a competitive advantage. So the audience reports are full of really interesting data about your users. I know that that's still a quick run through, but I think that gives you a deeper dive about what to expect and how maybe to use those reports so that you can make more informed decisions about how to improve your company.